Yeah, my name is Brian Grossman. I am editor-in-chief of the Colorado Springs Independent and the Colorado Springs Business Journal and the military newspaper group.
Awesome.
Yep.
Glenn?
I'll pass it off. Oh, yeah, there we go. Glenn.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, my name is Glenn Wallace. I am the editor for the Southeast Express.
Okay, thank you.
Helen?
Amy?
I was
Amy, you
okay.
want to go?
Hey, Holly, I'm Helen Lewis. I'm managing editor of the Indie and the Business Journal.
Okay.
And I think we know each other. I'm Amy Gillentine. I'm the publisher and executive editor of the newspaper group here. And this is almost all of the editorial board. We're missing just one member for the independent endorsements. And we're going to hand it over to Glenn, who is going to be asking you most of the questions.
Okay.
All right, to start, could you just tell us a little bit about your background?
Yes, so I am Holly Williams. I have lived here since 1992. Always been involved in the Republican Party, and then a few years ago made the decision to run for county commissioner. I have a master's in public administration and a bachelor's in what was then called American government, and I've always loved to watch our local government. And so taking the time to watch our local government, I've been fascinated with Tabor and how our local government, the city and the state, and the county address things. So I'd served as the El Paso County Public Trustee back in the early 2000s, and I decided to run for commissioner, and I won, and now I have 3 years of experience as county commissioner.
Wonderful. And that leads well into my next question. Being an incumbent, what are some of your past accomplishments as a commissioner that you're proud of?
Well, I really enjoy transportation and, our budgeting process. So with our transportation, we've made a lot of progress towards moving some of our roads along. I'm the member of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, representative on the statewide Transportation Advisory Committee. And we were fortunate through the collaboration of many of our local governments here to get the money to do powers and research. That's right in the heart of my district. I've waited for a good 10 years to see that one happen, and they're doing a fantastic job on that. I was able to help out with the Voyager Parkway exit. I'm also the chairman of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority, and we have many projects we're finishing up in my district. So we'll start in Highway 105, which is up in Monument and Beacon Light Road, and those hopefully will be completed near the end of 2025. And we have obviously a lot of road needs in our community. I've been the chairman for several years now of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, very sharp and amazing group of individuals, very passionate about the public safety needs in our community, pretrial services. As we see the state legislature come down with more and more regulations on how to handle that, that's been a challenge for us. We are trying to find a behavioral health solution for the committee. Unfortunately, we do have a very low tax rate in El Paso County, so it's probably going to have to be privately funded somehow. And when we went through this recession in 2008, our pretrial services program was completely cut. The entire department had to be eliminated because we didn't have the money. And so it's nice to see them back up and running and do a lot of good things. They work with the Department of Human Services, and they work with the Pikes Peak Workforce Center. And it's a wonderful group of people doing some good for our community.
Just to dive into that a little bit more, you mentioned for some of these things that you see a definite need for, some private funding might be needed. Looking at your website, you mentioned you've got 4 priorities that you list. And the first one is keep taxes low in El Paso. But the other three all sound like, man, they would probably take a lot of extra funding. So the obvious question is, how do you fund those extra three things that you'd really like to do, and some of these other things that you've mentioned in terms of transportation and criminal justice system, burgeoning the system there to do what we need to do.
Yes, that's the challenge of the job. So I can tell you, when it comes to our roads, more than 30% of our 4,400 lane miles are in failing condition. When a road gets to failing condition, it has to be completely recompleted, especially with the appropriate Americans with Disability Act standards. And then doing the things we would like to do in criminal justice are just, those are things that we look at, collaboration with private partners to do the best. But we do run our county government at $306 per citizen. We have strictly abided by Tabor, the Tabor spending cap. As I said, I like to watch our county budget. We've strictly abided by it for 20 years. And in 2008, from 2008 to 2011, we had to make a lot of cuts to things. One of those cuts was roads, and we also cut a lot of staff. And so I'm feeling like we're just barely catching up. And so I did support a ballot issue last fall to keep some excess revenue for our citizens. That did not pass. And so we'll be refunding $29.2 million of excess revenue, which is a lot. It does a lot of roads. It does a lot of different things. And we also, at the same time, I can talk about another need we have is with the city having a wildfire mitigation district. We need to do that. So many of the things I think of, we'll probably look at some easier solutions first. Right now, we're one of the few counties that has detabored from grants coming from the state legislature. So a person pays their state taxes, it comes down to us, and essentially it counts against the Tabor spending cap twice. And so we are missing out on our share of state grant funding because many of those grants now we just don't apply for because it would take us over our Tabor cap. And so that would be probably the easiest. Other solutions, solutions for roads, I wouldn't mind talking with the individuals in my district to see, because we're also urbanizing very quickly, to see what kind of ideas they have for those solutions. Unfortunately, until we can figure out if we're going into a recession, how long this inflation will last. We've entered a time of economic uncertainty, and it's just a really tough time to talk any sort of ballot issue or tax increase. And I really like Tabor because it does ask the citizens for the tax increase. And that would be, so I've always really liked Tabor because of that, but we're not getting our message out there about how effective and efficient we run, and we're trying harder to do that.
What would your primary goals be if reelected to another term?
Well, I want to continue on improving our roads, looking for more of a permanent road solution. I know there's also been interest in my district for a better trail system and better parks. If we run our roads on a shoestring, we only run our parks on half a shoestring. So it's an amazing budget that they run over there with a lot of private sponsorships. So I would continue to want to look at a behavioral solution to help with criminal justice. And so those would be primarily the three goals would be, and also to our public safety. We're getting a lot of speeding on the roads in my district, and a lot of people driving faster, moving here and not realizing it's rural country. And so those are kind of some of the things we need to address. Is we do need to start working towards a permanent solution for roads. Obviously, as I've said, with this economy, I don't think it's a good time to consider a permanent solution. The city has 2C And we have the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority sales tax that builds capacity on our roads and helps us catch up with the growth or keep up with the growth. And we're going out for renewal on that initiative this fall. But what the county really doesn't have is a stable, dedicated roads budget. And we have so many other needs we must address by statute and federal law before we even get down to roads. And I would just like to see if the voters in my district in particular, I don't know as if there's an interest countywide, but I would like to work with the business community and see if we can't come up with a solution that works. Our aging infrastructure in Glen Eagle, in Woodmore, we just can't keep up. And we have to find a way to address this problem.
What differentiates you from your other potential political opponents?
Well, I would say that I have the budgetary experience and the experience of understanding the processes, as well as an experience with collaborating with other elected officials in the region. So in order to fund powers and research, every single municipality in the region gave up money from one of their projects. And so we tried to work together closely on making sure that we look at the region as a whole, and that we're not just fighting over individual monies for our district. So I bring that experience. I have a good understanding of our budget process and the needs behind that, as well as an understanding that we need to, some of the things that happen behind the scenes are, the discussions when the county gets sued by someone. And that's, the discussions of how to maintain, we can't always take on the issue or be the leader on the issue because of the possibility we're always having to support the rule of law. So those are some of the issues that I bring to the table. And also continuing, one of the other tough spots in our county is our jail and our medical contract. Every prisoner, the second they enter the jail, loses their insurance, whether it's veterans, Medicaid, Medicare, or private insurance. And that is a huge cost. It's going up by 2 to 3 million every single year. And that's a cost that is not covered by our public safety sales tax. It comes out of our general fund. And we do need to find a solution to that, because we need a good medical provider for the jail.
Related to that, one question that we're asking all of the sheriff's candidates that we're talking to as well is, there's been a number of deaths at the facility there. And we've been asking candidates, what would you do maybe to change the situation there?
I think it does come down to our medical contract. I wouldn't say it's the medical company's fault, because it's our responsibility to ensure the safety of the inmates when they're in the jail. I would think that there's really 2 big service providers for jail medical contracts, and we're trying to tighten up our contract to make sure the needs are always met in the jail. They have not always been. And then if there's a chance that we could somehow bring some of that in-house, so that we could ensure that we always have some coverage. That's I'm usually one to say, let's go hire private companies, or see what other ideas we have. That's kind of an idea. Since the sheriff would be the expert on that, I would expect him to lead, but it's becoming it's really becoming a large problem, and we need to figure out, what's going on and how to get the jail so that the inmates are always safe, and that when there's medical care there, they receive it. And so it's becoming a bigger problem.
Could you tell us about a time that you've made a mistake and what the outcome was, or what you learned from that situation?
Oh, I just make so many mistakes. I think that one of the you really have to spend time talking to people, responding to emails. I would say the one thing I could improve at the most is really speaking more with my fellow elected officials, and also working hard with the members of our community. There's a lot of collaboration we could bring forward. And I tend to get caught up in reading materials and studying issues, but not necessarily going out and, having the breakfast or spending a lot of time bouncing ideas off of people. So I would say I'd love to be out in the community more. I love my district. I can see all the problems. I get frustrated with, the gazillion complaints about roads. And so I would like to see if I can communicate our budgetary message better, because we are a county government, not a municipal, which means our public safety is right up there, but our parks and our roads are frequently the last thing we fund in our whole budget process. So I always strive to do better. There's probably too many mistakes for me to remember one of them specifically, so I just have to keep working on it.
Talking about roads and public safety, especially on a day like today, fire is top of mind for a lot of El Paso residents. What, in terms of fire safety, fire prevention, fire response, would you like to see done if you get another term?
Well, so with our fire safety, I always say it's an individual responsibility first. And we have a lot of people who the fire prevention should be on new development, or it should be on their next door neighbor, not them. And so as far as wildfire mitigation, I think the city is going to have a really good program, and I'm looking forward to watching that. We've even bounced around some ideas just in the recent days about, can we get some more code enforcement officers and look more at keeping an eye out for the properties that do need to be mitigated more. The code enforcement process is awful lengthy for us. And I think it's building awareness and talking to people, but a lot of them just don't want to remove their trees, and it's so dry. So if I were to encourage everybody, I would say, have your go bag ready. You just never know. I mean, we just had the fire up by Great Wolf Lodge, and then we've got a fire today over in Sand Creek, and then the mobile home park one. And you just have to be able to pack your to-go bag and go. You're just, the firefighters will take care of as much as they can, and they'll take care of keeping structures from burning, but they can't be hampered with wondering if everybody's evacuated the neighborhood. So evacuate as quickly as you can. Don't go back into your neighborhood, and let the firefighters do their job, because I think we have an outstanding coordinated Office of Emergency Management that works really hard. But right now it's so hard with all of these, with the dryness, that we're just going to have to be very careful over the summer.
What, if anything, would you change about the relationship the county commissioners currently have, or the way the county currently operates with Colorado Springs, seeing as that's such a big central part of El Paso County?
Yes, well, I would say we did have a joint city council meeting and joint county commissioner meeting a few weeks ago. We're trying to do that a little bit more. The city, at that meeting, that we learned, the city, with the exception of Banning Lewis Ranch, is essentially grown out. And so the growth in the county is going to be 60%, was the estimate that the mayor gave us from some of the surveys that he had done. And we need to continue to work together on that growth. The county has different standards. Creating an annexation agreement was a good start to have, to be able to say, okay, if you want to develop this close to the city within the 3-mile radius, you need to go and visit with them and determine whether or not you will build to city standards. Because the truth is the city is better able to handle density. It's better able to handle road repairs. It can handle parks better. We're kind of a growing urbanizing county still with what I call a rural tax rate. And so I think in working with the city, we just continue to work together, iron out differences in that annexation agreement that we may have, and continue to both conserve our resources when it comes to water, because I know that the city council doesn't necessarily know a lot about the county's water policies, and I know a little bit about the cities, but I don't know how much supply they have or how long they expect that to last and their capacity to grow. So I think the best way we can work together is there's simple things such as we plow certain roads and they plow certain roads of ours, but then also work towards, there's areas in our city that are enclaves that are unincorporated areas, see if we can find a way to jointly repair those so the city can take them over. And then also keep working on talking a lot about how we build roads going east to west and how we handle the growth that's going to inevitably occur out east. And so I think the land use policy and the annexation agreement was a pretty good start towards that. I think we still have to work a little harder on that.
Okay, I'll hand it over to my fellow editors here in case they have any questions.
I do. I am interested in how you approach collaboration and compromise in your position.
Whew. When, in my mind, it's always easier, well, it's part of it is talking a lot with people, we have a really good county administrator in Brett Waters. He spends a lot of time communicating with each of us. We can't necessarily meet with a group of more than 2 when we go out of town. We always have to take a staff member to make sure that we are doing the right thing with open law, or Colorado open, laws. And so we try to find a good solution. A lot of times that collaboration occurs at the staff level and the cooperation, and then it filters up to the commissioners. That's one of the ways that works. And I try to work with and I'm not very successful with this at any time. I try to work with the attitude of no surprises. So if I'm thinking about something, first of all, I'm going to respect my fellow commissioners on their thoughts. And then I try to be honest with them and say, no, this is not going to work for me. And those are just, since we're equal 5 elected commissioners, we all have our own ideas and some very strong opinions. And so we do a pretty good job at the county because we're all of the same party. But I think that working with other governments is kind of hard for us too, though, because, we don't have a large budget. We're not like the federal government, and the state government has had a large excess revenue. And so sometimes the collaboration with other governments gets really hard because if the town of Monument needs just a little extra money to get over a bump in the road to do a project they want, frequently our answer has to be no. And that's one of the things that, it's hard because we need these projects to get done, and we have to wait on those. So I just try to always say no surprises, be sure to communicate your intentions, and it's always something I know I can do better.
Okay. What is your leadership style?
I would say I'm a quiet leader. I know I look at our 5 commissioners, we have one who's incredibly persuasive, and there's certain lines that I won't cross, but for the most part, I always try to be polite. It's not in my nature to openly criticize someone. And typically, if something happens, I will get behind a closed door with them and tell them. And then I prefer to delegate a lot of stuff, so I know we have fantastic staff and they do a good job. And as long as they're doing a good job, I'm going to listen to them more and work with them on the ideas they have. And so if there's a time that comes when I have to say something, I make it quick and we just get it done. But, there's 5 of us, and we really only supervise 2 employees, the county attorney and the county administrator. But sometimes something comes up and you have to figure out which battle you can win and how you can win it. So I try to be persuasive. I don't necessarily have the diplomatic gift that some of the others on the commission have, but there are just times when we don't get along.
Can you tell us one of those times when you took a stance that you firmly believed in and kind of went against the rest of the commissioners, and you would take that stance again?
Yes, and that was when we discussed whether or not we would go out for a Tabor Initiative on the ballot. This is a lesson learned for me as well, but we knew the economy was good. I am not an economic expert at all, but we knew that we were going to produce a lot of excess revenue. And because I was seeing it at the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority as well on the sales tax revenue, and they don't have a Tabor cap. And I know how far behind we are on roads. And so when it came time to discuss going out to the ballot for Tabor, we didn't discuss it enough. I was all ready to go out, ask for the money. I felt we could win the issue. We were in Washington, D.C. at a national convention. I found out that a few of my commissioners weren't interested in doing it. And it turned out to be a bad idea because we went out to the ballot and we were split on the vote. And so that's one of the times where, yes, we've had some heated discussions, and I tried to stand behind my view because we really needed that money for our roads. And, there were mistakes made on both sides, and I think we've learned from it. And so we will try to work with that. I get frustrated. If I get really frustrated, I don't raise my voice. I tend to get tears in my eyes, and that's how it works. But we just keep trying to work through some of the issues. And that was one of the times where it was definitely a little bit uncomfortable on our floor for a while. So.
Do you guys have anything?
Yeah, I have.
Oh yeah, Brian, you go ahead.
Helen, you want to go first?
Sure. I just want to go back to fire mitigation. Is the county truly limited to telling people to have a bag ready and be set to go? if we really are looking at individual responsibility as the main tactic, and people don't want to remove their trees, and just 2 households who don't want to remove their trees can send, 3 streets up in flames, Is that really where we're going with the solution? What else can the county do?
Well,
especially, as you said, enforcement is currently an issue.
yes, I am really excited the city's trying this fire mitigation district, and we now have a means to do that. I expect the needs of Black Forest and Woodmore are far greater than the needs of the Eastern Plains, although their fires are different. And so because of our Tabor spending cap, yes, we are limited on applying for wildfire mitigation grants because they all come down. The state has given plenty of money towards that. And they all come down and they can't come through the county budget because if you brought down a $4 million grant, you have to take $4 million from something else. So in that respect, we are limited. We do, as a county, mitigate all of our own properties every year, but we have to start thinking about how we're going to approach the problem differently because of how quickly we're urbanizing. And if you look like at a neighborhood like Cathedral Pines, where it's required by their HOA, we have required wildfire mitigation plans for new developments coming in, but we don't have anything in our code enforcement that says houses need to mitigate. And that's something that we could do. You know, for that, we might want to consider looking at planning and development enterprise, similar to what the city has, so that we can increase staff when the economy is good and decrease it so it's more fee-based coming in there instead of based out of our general fund. So I do feel like we're limited because, you know, we want to do, there's so great of need in the Black Forest area. I really do feel like we're limited in what we can do. Part of that is finding a way to either raise our Tabor spending cap or to do a special dedicated fund for that. And the mayor was successful with his. And I think that that would be a worthwhile idea to try.
Thanks. Brian, go ahead.
But yeah, everybody should still have their to-go pack ready. Sorry.
Right. Hey, Holly. First of all, you have a beautiful view from your backyard. I just wanted to say that.
Oh, no, this is my Zoom background.
Yeah, I know. I was kidding. That was a joke. But anyway,
Yep.
yeah, I'm going to go to public health. So how would you say the county, the board, handled the outbreak of the coronavirus in 2020? And now that we're starting to see sort of an uptick once again, what lessons did you learn the first time around that you might incorporate if this gets bad again? And sort of, you know, rate your collaboration with the public health department too.
Wow. So I never expected to experience a 100-year pandemic. I think that it was a very hard time. Sometimes we were making decisions literally on the fly and trying to figure out what was best for the community. During that time, I think the things we did do a good job on were applying for the governor's variance process, getting our businesses open as quickly as we can. When we got the CARES Act funding, we were able to, you know, we made the right decision to distribute some of that to the cities and towns because they had not received any. And we worked really hard to make sure that that was spent correctly and really helped the small businesses that were struggling. I do feel the whole issue became really politicized, and that's just the way it was. Some of the shutdowns I thought were unconstitutional, such as the shutdown of churches. But I think as we go forward, the important thing, the one stat that's always worried me the most is when our hospitals get overwhelmed and the nurses' fatigue that we were experiencing. And that I think that's the one statistic that always worried me the most. I think it's something we're all going to get. And, you know, we may as well start building up our immunity now to it. I don't know as if a solution is anytime in the near future. And so I would always watch that hospital statistic the closest, and, you know, try to make our decisions off of that. The amazing thing the county did, if I get to brag for a bit, is our employees were back at work within a week, not in their offices, but if you go to a department like the Department of Human Services, they have 8 to 10 secure systems with very high level access to people's information from the state. And they were all back to work within a week, working from home. So that was pretty amazing to me, knowing how little we operate some days with our IT budget. I would, you know, I guess at the end of the day, the thing I'm most concerned about is the schools and the school children. And I say that because I have 2 daughters, both had speech deficits, and those kindergartner to 3rd graders, they really needed to be in a classroom with their teachers. And I think they're going to really struggle because of it. But that is a school board's decision. It's your local school, you know, board of education to make that decision as to what your COVID policies are. So what I would like to see with our health department is to continue to push our policies down to the local level as much as possible. Because I don't want to be telling another elected official in the education industry, whose expert is their budget and education, that, you know, they need to be shutting down school or going all virtual. I think that that needs to be handled at the local level. I think our health department did an outstanding job. I know that many of them essentially were working, you know, 24/7. We got to the point where we had our wonderful coroner, Leon Kelly, as the assistant medical director. We had 3 or 4 people who would be on call, and they would alternate who was on call during the weekend in case an emergency happened. And then our other thing that was a bit of a frustration, but it's how things operate, would be the governor would drop a new health order every Friday. And so that would require our legal staff and a lot of our health department higher level individuals to work through the weekend to figure out what it said. And so I just hope if it does get worse, you know, I think that we'll do the right things. So we'll, you know, reopen the mobile centers and, you know, have the vaccines available for individuals. We need to make sure that we have enough tests for when it does get bad, so that people can actually go over to the drugstore or the grocery store and buy a rapid test. I've kind of come to the conclusion, and this is not based on any scientific data, but I think it's just, since I'm more of a high-risk individual, I just think it's something every time a different variant comes out, I'm going to get it. I'll get my vaccination because that's the way I was raised, and my family, especially my chemistry daughter, believes in that. And so, but I think that it's just something we're going to have to work hard to see if we can't figure out a solution to it. But the more people get out, the more we're going to get it. And so I think our health department handled it very well. And it was a very stellar effort on their part, given that they were frequently called and people would yell at them a lot.
Yeah. One more question for me. You mentioned earlier how the board is pretty politically aligned. I'm just wondering if you see that ever as a detriment maybe to the board and to citizens of El Paso County, residents in El Paso County.
I think used to be that we were fairly aligned. I think that now we have various levels of different viewpoints. I think where it's going to become a detriment is there will be a redistricting bill coming up. So we did not do any redistricting for commissioner districts this year. That redistricting will require us to make 2 very competitive districts in downtown. So I think where our political line, where that becomes a problem, because I think opposite viewpoints, I enjoy talking with my friends from the other party, especially at some of these meetings, the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, you know, Mark Schneider, who's a state representative, he once just totally set me straight on my view of Tabor, and he's a Democrat, you know, and so I enjoy their opinions. I enjoy talking to them. I think with the growth we're facing out east, I think it's going to be a bad idea to create 2 downtown districts, because we typically on land use issues defer to the resident commissioner, you know, to see what their opinion is of the land use item. And if we end up with a district that is essentially all of Eastern El Paso County, I think that there's some advantages to making sure every commissioner has a little bit of the area where the growth is going to occur. I would enjoy the different viewpoints too. I think the discussing of views is always very healthy. Hearing different viewpoints is healthy. You may never know, you know, I might never agree with you, but, you know, seeing if we can find a place to come to a compromise. I think that the voting public to some extent is really tired of the far left and the far right. And especially at the federal level, would like them to see them come together and come up with real solutions. And without that robust debate between both viewpoints, sometimes you do not get the robust solution. And so I think that, you know, there would be some good things that would happen with someone of another party on the commission. We have enough differences already, so it'd be kind of fun to spark things up even a little more.
All right. Thanks, Holly. That's all I have. I'll pitch it back to Glenn if nobody else has anything.
Are we all good?
I'm good.
I am, yeah.
Thank you so much, Holly. We appreciate your time.
Okay.
Thank you for being here. These will run, I think we've decided mid-June, after the ballots come out, but
Sure.
Well before the end of the primary voting season. So thank you again. We appreciate your time so much.
Okay, thank you all. I hope I didn't ramble too much. So
no, it's great. Thank you.
Okay, have a good day.
Okay,
Thank
bye.
you.
Thank you.